News. We interrupt this program for a live event.
Adamawa University between 77, 79, did diploma, and then from there I finished the degree 1980 to 1983. From where I proceeded to the law school in Lagos, and then finished from there. In the two institutions, I finished with a 2-1. I belong to the category of students with the best results from both the university and the law school. After that, the University of Maiduguri invited us to provide some level of staffing for the university, which we obliged. So I left my service from Gongola State and then joined University of Maiduguri as a lecturer in 1985 after I served my NYSC in Old Imo. That was where I did my service, 1983 to 1984, with a gentleman called Barrister Erebu on Weather Road. That was also one of my best moments in life because I had excellent relationships in that place. I had the opportunity to go to practically every court in the eastern region at that time, and even part of South, because he was quite an elderly lawyer, so he concentrated in Owerri, while I served all the other courts, cases in the other courts in the rest of the East. So you can see that I've been around the country, and after that, 2001, there was a need to establish more campuses of the law school. And one was set up in Kano, Lagos, and Enugu. Now, through a competitive process, I became the pioneer head and deputy DG of the one in Kano, which I managed for 4 years and brought up the population of students from that time from 150 at inception to almost 1,000 by the time I left in 2004. Again, I left to become DG of the law school through a very competitive process. It was not just an administrative appointment, but we were about 19 of us competed for it, and I emerged the DG successful in the process, which position I held for 8 years. Now, when I came in 2005, we made on ground close to 10,000 students who had problems with admission to Nigerian law school. It was called a backlog crisis at that time. And so we worked out a formula, cleared that number in 3 years, and then restored the law school to its basic job of admitting regular students from the universities. And we also, to ensure that that problem doesn't recur, I got the approval of the federal government to establish 2 more campuses of the law school. One I took to Bayelsa, one I took to Northeast, and there was a reason for the distribution. Other zones had campuses, except South, and Northeast. So I persuaded the government that for fairness and equity, one should be taken to the South, and one to the Northeast, and that was what happened. And then the third thing, major thing which I did in the law school when I was a DG was, I met the way the students, trainees were handled. We thought it was not in line with the law that set up the institution, because it's supposed to provide practical training for lawyers, you know, in ethics and the daily practices of the legal profession. So we thought the law school was training students the way universities were training LLB students. So a program that was run for 40 years, we jettisoned it, brought in a reform, and then brought in that ensured a practical training for lawyers in Nigeria until date. This is the program that is being run. Now, after I retired in 2013 from the law school, I went to contest. I joined the APC and contested for the governorship of the state in 2015. Unfortunately, I didn't emerge as the candidate of the party. Now, from there, the owner of Bayes University invited me for the second time, to come and help out with his university, which offer I accepted, and a few months after I became the Vice Chancellor of the university. And while I was doing the job of the VC, I continued with my job in the political terrain. So I was appointed as a member representing the Northeast to the National Caretaker Committee and Extraordinary Committee of the party in 2020. And while there, I served to a large extent as the legal advisor, and also in the process had the opportunity to chair the constitution review of the party, which for some time we were told there were a lot of efforts to review the constitution, but it didn't work. So we were able to accomplish that task. Then thirdly, while there, we were also involved in a lot of troubleshooting. Working with Ken Inamani, we were almost a two-man squad together with one of our distinguished senators was also with us. And so that's how I was very, very active at the National Caretaker Committee. In those tumultuous you remember the Jegede case in court. That the advice we offered, I had the opportunity even to address the 22 governors of the APC at that time when to provide some legal guidance on the matter. Unfortunately, that guidance was accepted, and that was what contributed to settling the issue, and the party moved on from there. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my last job, as I said, is Vice Chancellor of Bayes University. And those who know that university will understand that it's one of the leading institutions now. So with this brief once more, invited and considered by this distinguished body for this position. You have with me somebody who is involved in solving problems, a bundle of experience in administration, in law, in a lot of things. So I'm really delighted that we are joining. We may be subject to the confirmation, if confirmed, that we will be joining the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to achieve the agenda of this government. And what I may conclude with is, in the life of human beings, which also extend to nations, there's a tide, as Julius Caesar said, in the affairs of
you need no introduction. But because you have mentioned some of your students who are still learning from you, I know are here as distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I will crave the indulgence of the Senate to recognize one or two of the students of Prof. It's not easy to be a Director General of Nigerian Law School. It's not easy to be a senior advocate of Nigeria. It's not easy to be a lecturer of law for over 35 years. So one of the students is here, former Attorney General of Borno State, distinguished Senator Mongoro, immediate past Chief Whip of the House of Representatives. Is there anything you can say about your teacher?
Distinguished Senate President, distinguished senators, my name is Mamman Tahir. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. As his resume is res ipsa loquitur, it speaks for itself. As his resume clearly depicts, this is a man that has bestrode the political, the academic, the legal, and the educational landscape of this country like a colossus. And he's going to bring his experience to bear on the renewed hope agenda government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to bring good governance and deliver dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of the people. Distinguished Senate President, as rightly alluded to him, I am one of his mentees. He has taught me law of evidence at 300 level in the University of Maiduguri. And I know, as rightly acknowledged by him, he is proud to have seen one of his students today, not only as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but also as a former Attorney General of a state. Mr. Senate President, as rightly also alluded by you, I would still like to learn more from him. If not, I will not ask him any question. But because as a teacher, whenever I see him, I have that thirst to quench my thirst for learning. So I will ask him one question, that he will broaden our horizon, so that he will broaden our horizon on the question that I'm going to ask. Sir, my question is, the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, or Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice, as the case may be, is a very sensitive office and sometimes even performs a quasi-judicial function in the discharge of that office, especially when it comes to the issue of entering nolle prosecute. There are apologies and school of thought that the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice should be separated from the Attorney General and Minister of Justice should be separated in order to insulate that office from the vagaries and vicissitudes of political influence. So my question is, ceteris paribus, I learned that word from you. Ceteris paribus, if you are confirmed and eventually you are a member of the Federal Executive Council, either as Attorney General or in whatever capacity or ministry that you find yourself, what is your opinion on this issue of separating the Office of the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, as the case may be? Thank you. And I have also sponsored a bill to that effect in the House, but that bill did not see the light of the day. And I'm still very passionate about it because I have occupied that office. I know the sensitivity of that office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Very distinguished Senator Kaka. One time Attorney General also of and here you have your teacher, your prof, your Director General of Nigerian Law School, and he taught you well. We can all attest in this Senate that you are a very well-behaved student. So you have anything to say to your prof?
Mr. President, sitting as chair, my name is Kakashe Ulawan. I represent the good and resilient people of Borno Central Senatorial District. I am from Borno State, northeastern Nigeria. The nominee standing before you, Professor Tahir Mamman, was my teacher, head of department, Dean Faculty of Law, and Dean Student Affairs while I was a student in the University of Maiduguri. In part 2, he taught me constitutional law, and in part 3, administrative law. I am very happy to inform these hallowed chambers that I was a student union leader in the University of Maiduguri when he was the Dean of Student Affairs. Not trouble, but doing aluta. Comrade Oshomole is also my mentor then when he was a labor leader. Mr. President, Professor Tahir Mamman is one of the best brains University of Maiduguri had, and then the Nigerian Law School. As a lecturer in part 2, he fraternized with students in the classroom freely. You ask him questions, he will answer, and then he will practically expose you to what the Constitution is and how it operates. The modus operandi of the powers of executive, legislature, and the judiciary is actually at our fingertips in part 2. Mr. President, in part 3, male students of the University of Maiduguri are not entitled to accommodation. But when he became the Dean of Student Affairs, he maneuvered his ways to ensure that all male students of part 3 in the University of Maiduguri were accommodated in the hostel. Not only that, he also gave us free hand as student unionists to operate in the University of Maiduguri. Mr. President, that notwithstanding, we graduated from University of Maiduguri while he left us halfway to the Nigerian Law School. At the Nigerian Law School, just like he rightly posited, he was the Deputy Director General Pioneer DG in Kano campus. He was later elevated to the prestigious rank of the Director General of the Nigerian Law School, where my very good friend and neighbor, distinguished Senator Weyeboy, was also his student at the law school. So we are not only two, but he has another stand-up for recognition. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, sir, apart from this, when I became Attorney General of Borno State, I had the rare privilege of becoming a member of the Body of Benchers and then a member of the Council of Legal Education, even though it was for a very short period of time at the law school and then the Body of Benchers. I learned a lot from the nominee before us, while I associate myself with the contribution of my learned senior, distinguished Senator Mohammed Monguno. I want to congratulate the nominee, and also in the spirit of teacher-lecturer relationship, I want to urge my colleagues to see reason. This is a best brain. He can work in any ministry you give him. He has 2-1 in those days at the law school and both at the university. I urge my colleagues to kindly confirm his nomination. Thank you, Mr. President. I so submit. Thank you, sir.
We are not doing confirmation today. We are only doing screening. But you know, for somebody whose resume is already well known to all Nigerians, in fact, thousands of lawyers across Nigeria. He has been a lecturer in the university, he has been a dean of faculty of law, he has been a deputy director general of law school, he has been a director general of law school worldwide, and in charge of almost all, in fact, all the campuses of law school in Nigeria. And he has also served even our party in various capacities, professor of no mean repute. So I know that some of the people raising their hand must have also been his students. So let me hear from the distinguished Senator Neda. Were you also one of them?
Mr. President, acting as chair, distinguished colleagues, my name is Neda Imasuen, Senator representing Edo South Senatorial District. Mr. President, to your dismay, he's 1 year my senior. I'm a class of 1985, while he's a class of 1984. But I've read through his resume, and I'm quite impressed of his work at the University of Maiduguri, where I'm proudly an alumnus. So, Prof, I thank you for going to my school to elevate it to the level that my colleagues have spoken about. Having said that, I have just 2 questions for you. I wouldn't know what portfolio will be assigned to you, but I want to assume that you will be at least in the council where you'll be giving advice to the president and indeed helping our country. In the legal profession, there's this issue of forum shopping. It's very disturbing that a case emanates from a Edo State, for instance, and the lawyer looking for a friendly court comes to Abuja to seek relief, when in fact the nexus of that case has nothing to do with Abuja. I believe that this is very destructive to the legal system. I wonder what you would do if you are in a position to address this matter. 2, the Nigerian law school is actually facing a lot of problems. Today, I have not fewer than 6 requests from my constituency asking that they should be admitted to Nigerian law school. And the reason they have told me is because there's such a backlog of students. Students who graduated 4 or 5 years ago are yet to be admitted to Nigerian law school. And you and I know very well the issue of seniority at the bar. So those who graduated 4 years ago have now become juniors to their colleagues who fortunately have been admitted to Nigerian law school. I just believe that there has to be something to be done to arrest this situation before it actually gets out of hand. Indeed, it's out of hand now. So if you're in a position, I ask again, what will you do to address this anomaly? Thank you.
Really, Senator Neda, I would think that is a very good question, because Prof, he wants to know what you taught the judges when you were their lecturer, whether you allowed them judges with coordinate jurisdictions, giving divergent rulings on the same subject matter. That's one side. And then at the same time, courts of coordinate jurisdictions having universal jurisdiction in a way that even if the matter occurred in Akwa Ibom, somebody will run to Maiduguri to go and get an injunction on a matter that had nothing to do with the Borno State. So distinguished Senator Adams Oshimole, I'm sure the labor union must have also had experience with the judiciary so that he can answer at once and take leave. You have anything to ask the Prof?
Mr. President, thank you very much for this privilege. What I actually wanted to ask is the fact that many of us in this hall, Mr. President, my name is Adams Aliu Oshimole. I represent the great people of Edo North in Edo State. We still have cases pending in court arising from election. And even the presidential is still pending. And yet, we saw that in Kenya, they had a dispute over election, and the issues were resolved within a month or 2. Is it not possible to review, at least for political matters alone, to assist us as parliamentarians, if that becomes necessary, to amend the Electoral Act and matters related to election in such a way that between the end of an election and when the people are due to be sworn in, those who won or lost, that the issues in dispute are resolved. Because the English legal system, from which I understand we borrow our own legal system, they have a way of dispersing justice within months. And this 160 days at one court, another 160 days at another court, sometimes means that nobody is sure of the security or otherwise of his tenure until almost half of the term is over. There have been improvements thanks to the Senate and the House of Rep, who have tried to bridge the gap. But some of us think that maybe much more can be done. And what is the role of lawyers? Even in the question raised by my brother from Edo South, where those cases are filed, not just they give conflicting judgment, but even the fact that a federal high court will entertain a matter, knowing very well that that matter is also pending in another high court, like even the one going on now in Edo State. Without it, I'm not going to mention the specifics, so it's not sub judice. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Sass.
Mr. President, sitting as chair, distinguished colleagues, I was just being reminded here that I'm not a lawyer, and therefore, why was I raising my hand? Let me say very clearly that I may not be a lawyer, but I'm come from the cradle of the legal profession in Nigeria. I'm from Abeokuta, Ogun Central, the home of Adetokunbo Ademola, the first indigenous Supreme Court Justice, and the home of Bola Ajibola. So I may not be a lawyer by training, I'm a lawyer by ancestry. Prof, you come highly recommended by your resume, and I was going through one of the papers you presented. Mamman, T, unethical conduct at the bar. I want to extrapolate this into the bench as well. My question is this: a number of people have this impression that not only do you need to know the law, you must also know your way to get justice in Nigeria. As someone with this very rich legal background, what will you do to ensure that not only is justice done, but it's also seen to have been done by the populace? The second question is also the role of technology in reforms. Sometimes I wonder, why is it that it's difficult to deploy case management system in such a manner that even if a case is filed in Edo and somebody is going to file similar case in Maiduguri, there's a repository that is online that the judge in Maiduguri could say, this is forum shopping. What will you be doing to apply technology to reform the judicial process in such a manner that justice is not as expensive as it is? And I'm sure a number of our colleagues who are at the tribunal will know how expensive it is to prosecute particularly political cases in Nigeria. So, Prof, those are the two questions. As I said, I'm not a lawyer, but I come from a town of lawyers.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Sadiq Omar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sitting as chair, my distinguished colleagues, I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent Kwara North. Prof, your resume speaks enough for all of us to get clearly what you've been able to achieve in life. But of course, when we do screening in the Senate, we are not just validating your competency, capacity, we're also interested in knowing your thinking and how that thinking can affect the society. I'm going to be asking you a question as an academic. You school in Nigeria, you school in UK, you taught in a public school in Nigeria, you also are heading a private university. Today, in this century, education is capital intensive. What we are budgeting for education is almost nothing that can move us to survive in the world of today. Do you really think that Nigerian public schools, their funding, what they charge, can make public schools, public universities, produce graduates that can compete globally? If you think what they are paying and the resources available is not going to meet that, how do you think Nigerian public universities can have enough funding for them to be competitive globally?
Prof, you just take maybe 2 more questions and then you now answer so you can take leave of the Senate. The Civil Senator Abbas Wakil Adamawa Jr.
Mr. President, distinguished Senator Mamman Abbas, Senator of Adamawa Central. Mr. President, the nominee, Professor Tahir Mamman, is from Adamawa, and the 3 senators here, across party line, have agreed and endorsed the nomination of Professor Tahir Mamman as a minister nominee for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, from our own side of the chamber, we were told by the leader of the party in the state to give all our support for Professor Tahir Mamman to become Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that is why I'm standing to express our gratitude to Mr. President for nominating him to become Minister in his cabinet. I don't have question to ask, but I have a request to distinguished senators. If they have no objection, Prof should be allowed to answer the question asked and take leave of the chamber. Thank you.
Prof, your senator from Adamawa has made a request to the Senate that the questions they've asked you are almost enough for you to move the legal profession forward. That you should proceed answers to them and thereafter take leave of the Senate. The floor is yours.
Well, I will answer the questions in the order they were asked, starting with Senator Mongono. There have been a lot of discussions on the desirability or not of separating Attorney General and Minister of Justice. My own answer to that is that the office of the Attorney General is largely a knowledge work. Unlike other ministries where you can separate the mandates of departments, it's very difficult when it comes to the Ministry of Justice. So where does that of the Attorney General start and end compared to that of the Minister of Justice? Now, within our climate, I've always said a large portion of our problem is actually human. It's not about the law or even the Constitution itself. It's a lot of it is human. Once we agree to do the right thing, you will see that whoever is occupying that office will answer to the ethics of the profession, which requires him to be professional, detached, and autonomous in the exercise of his work. So, for me, the better position will still be to retain the offices in unity rather than in separation. That will be much neater and ensure that you get an appropriate Attorney General who will be accountable to the various other organizations of government, like the National Assembly, body of benchers and others. They work together. So that synergy and interface and accountability and oversight is already there. So that has always been my position. If we can minimize the influence of personal issues, human factors, that office will work better when it is combined. Then secondly, the second question is from Senator Nade, distinguished Senator Nade, about forum shopping, which His Excellency, the President, added courts of coordinated jurisdiction. Again, the Constitution and jurisdiction of the Federal High Court in particular, allows for that kind of flexibility. But by and large, what we are seeing is an abuse by litigants who believe they can go to another jurisdiction and get judgment away from where actually everything happened, where they are supposed to file their cases. And the lawyers who practice legal practitioners are supposed to sign a document, stating whether they have filed that case in another court, at inception. So that's also another check. And together with the NJC, which is responsible for discipline of lawyers, when petitions are made to the NJC where such happens, and it is very clear that it's been an abuse, the NJC can come into it. But by and large, it is always an attempt by people to circumvent the process of justice. And one solution has been suggested here, which I agree with entirely. That is the use of technology. Because if our courts, are well synergized in terms of the technology, then it should be possible for them to detect multiple filing of cases across jurisdictions. And I believe whoever becomes the Attorney General will work with the judiciary to ensure that our courts are well positioned in terms of technology. Quite a number of them are doing it already, but somehow they are doing it in isolation. So what is needed is a national platform through which some of these things can happen. Federal High Court, Court of Appeal, only the Supreme Court is free from that problem because it's only one. So that's my response on that. And then the question from distinguished Oshemole in terms of duration of cases and the resolution of cases where not only according to him you have to know the law, but you also have to know the process. Yes, this parliament has been very active in terms of being able to work on the Electoral Act to provide for that, and also the Constitution. These are all possible because there's really no reason why our cases should last this long. So it is quite possible. So it depends. Once the new Attorney General comes on board, these are matters which can also be addressed together with the rest of other organs. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Prof. Is it the distinguished Senator Abu said he's your senator? He's the senator representing you in Adamawa. So let's just give him 1 minute to say something on behalf of your conscience.
Thank you, Mr. President of the Senate sitting as chair. I appreciate the privilege. I want to thank my colleagues for the honorable way they treated this distinguished nominee who is also my constituent. my colleagues from Adamawa, I want to thank you for going around your colleagues also to lobby so that your colleagues will agree with you. That's the politics of the chamber. Mr. President, sitting in a chair, 2 Corinthians 13 verse 1 says, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. Everyone that speak here today speak on the kind of person that he is. It is not actually about living, but living so that when you are no longer here tomorrow, good things should be said about you. I feel so proud that every speaker testify of his goodness. Thank you so much, Mr. President. We can now respectfully again ask that you should take a bow and go. Thank you, sir.
Out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses.
2 Corinthians chapter 13 verses 1. Out of the mouth of 2 to 3 witnesses shall every word be established. That means what people say about you, it is important because they bear witness to you on earth. That's the word of God. Thank you, sir. Pastor Abu.
Well, if I knew that it would be out of the mouth of 2 or 3, but over 9 people spoke. So so the word is more than established. Prof, thank you so much and congratulations on your nominations. You can now take leave of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.